Good morning, Claudell Clark, President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Greater Hampton Roads. I'm here today with Mr. Bill Bussey, owner and president of Global Retail Alliance, Inc., accredited business with the Better Business Bureau of Greater Hampton Roads. And we're here with another edition of the Coaches Corner. Bill, good morning.
Good morning.
We've
Good
been
morning, Freddie.
we've already been talking a little bit and gotten warmed up about just this great business venture that you have here domestically and internationally, and we want to learn more about that. And on the Coaches Corner, we often talk about the parallels between business and coaching. We talked to a big OSU Cowboys fan, so you certainly know a lot about sports and certainly know a lot about business. So we want to talk about how those things parallel, and when we really get down to it, they just kind of go hand in hand. So, Bill, please tell us a little bit more about Global Retail Alliance and how you got started and how you've become accredited, and we'll go from there.
Global Retailers Incorporated was formed in 2014, specifically to take over Decorator, which was a retail brand that I had started in Poland, Warsaw, Poland. And we opened a big store like Bed Bath & Beyond as Decorator. Went through some growing pains because the venture capital company, which was Polish, they wanted a big store, and I was talking about we need to do e-commerce soon after. So we had a significant difference of opinion, and over a period of a year or so, back and forth, and I left and went to Russia and had my equity in the startup doubled. That was one of the conditions. And I went to Russia and spent some time there getting familiar with that culture. And then I spent about a year in Turkey doing a similar project for a Turkish guy. And we, the second time around, so, I consider myself one of these three times a charm kind of guy. And if you look at many of the people, highly successful people, Airbnb, all of those, um, they probably started two or three times too. So um, with uh, with the company coming out of bankruptcy, we reformatted and opened e-commerce first. Opened small stores, not big stores, and launched a new channel called we called it in-home sales and services. Uh, that was a retail network like had never been started in Poland. And to be honest with you, the in-home sales and services actually made it unusual and the uniquest maybe in the world. And I like to say that we were an omni-channel before the word omni-channel was ever added to the retail vernacular. So with COVID, we decided to do bigger and better things, take advantage of the downtime. And the best comparison I can give you is in the old format, our focus was on the time starved, educated female. Uh, Now we're focused on the home, and we want to make it easy for people to take care of their home because it truly is the only safe place in the world, like during COVID, to where you can do what you need to do when you need to do it. So our goal now is to help the Poes keep a happy and healthy home.
Well, good. With all that said, as in sports and as in business, you need a team to do this. so you can't do all that yourself. And you talked about some of the officers that you have. So how large is your team, and how does some of your administrative team look, and how does your field team look, and just describe to us the
Well,
team that you have out there.
we're low cost, so that means that um, we don't have the layers that other people might have. Um, so we've got three people that each have the ability to be president over there. Here, I have one individual who is president. I'm the CEO and the founder, and he's president, and he knows that when we get everything running the way it needs to be running, and I make that dollar, then I'm going to start working a couple days a week. Uh, and we're going to add, uh, we're a university. We call it Deco University,
Okay.
Deco U. And that's going to be the undergrad, the pinning of keeping us better and different than everybody else. So I'm going to take that over when we make a dollar with the company, and Greg will run the company with the three Polish people that each of them can be president of the company, the brand, uh, and the in-home sales and services channel will have plumbers, electricians, computer people, uh, so that people who can keep their home, keep the value in their home by taking care of the equipment. And just to give you an example, the other day I was at a luncheon and there was 33 people there, and I asked 10 of them if they knew a dishwasher, as an example, had a filter. Only 2 out of 10 knew it had a filter. And if you change that filter or clean that filter every 6 months, that dishwasher will last you about 3 decades. But they're built to where if you don't take care of it, they're going to be out in 7, 8 years. You'll have to replace it. So that's the kind of thing that we're adding now to Decorador to help keep that home healthy and the people in that home happy.
Gotcha. Well, you talk university, and we oftentimes talk about professional development and getting better as a coaching staff, getting better as the organizational staff, administrative staff. Yeah, how do you continue to yourself and your leadership team to get better to continue to professionally develop?
We was talking about a football coach, and I said, he's got to he's got to be able to win the big one. Okay, uh, so when I have difficulty at some point uh, with a person, I make a decision. And once I make that decision, I'll sit down with them. And I had to do that this last visit there with a person who's worked for me for 2 decades. Uh, and I look at that part of the business as the opportunity to make that jump and get better. Because I don't care who it is, myself included, has a tendency to feel too comfortable, get just a little bit complacent, and they don't see the little things. And retail, especially retail and really football, sports, it's the detail that if you once you master that detail, then you can move on. And same thing in retail. There's a philosophy in retail that you can only do one thing really good. Well, I don't believe that. I believe that you can do three things really good. Maybe they're prioritized, but you know where your weakness is, and you're always looking for uh, an opportunity to rebuild, rethink, redo it. And that's a coach has got to think that way, I would think. I mean, he can't be buried about problems today. He needs to be thinking about tomorrow. And so anytime I have an obstacle, as in this last one, I wanted to cry. It broke my heart to tell that person what I had to tell them. And I've only had to do that one other time. I was about 32 years old, and I had to tell a guy at 59, you're just not cutting it in today's environment. So uh, I, my way of refreshing my attitude, because I have to watch that, I become complacent, is when I get a little negative or cranky here, I go to Poland.
That
Okay,
must be nice.
I go I go to Poland, and going over there in 30 days, working with that team, uh, I just come back a new person. Uh, so my therapy is going to Poland to handle my life here today. Um, so with that being said, this time around, we're going to buy a company instead of build from the ground up. And we're going to acquire a couple companies. We've already identified those companies, and we've kind of recruited a team. And unbeknownst to anybody in that company, those companies, uh, so we've got a new team coming up right now that can take us where maybe the other team would have floundered a bit. So I think that retail is very similar to coaching, uh, because probably the best retail coach was Sam Walton,
Oh yeah.
and he's the only retail company that I can think of in my history that you can walk in today and see programs at 7 o'clock in the morning that he started when he would go around to the stores. Uh, Sam started a program, and I've met Sam 3 different times. But he started a program where 7 o'clock in the morning, every morning, in every Walmart store, um, they would gather around, and the store manager would update them, tell them what they did well the previous day and what they had to do this new day. And then they sang their Walmart chant. Uh, and that's a good coach, you know, because really, and I asked Sam a couple of times why he took the time, because you take that time away from the job that needs to be done to do that every morning. He says, Bill, he says, whatever that costs me, I get it back 1,000 times in one week, because my people feel like that I appreciate them, respect them. And that's the truth. And I think coaching and retail is very similar in that regard.
Oh, what a great story. You talk Poland, domestic business, international business. What have been some of the challenges that operating internationally have posed? Things are very different: laws, taxes, regulations. What challenges have you faced differently in Europe versus, say, here in the United States?
You, that's a super good question, really. The first thing I do is I find me a local attorney, and I look for someone who's just started his business or her business, uh, because I know they're hungry and they want to they're motivated and they want to make a name. So I give them the opportunity of saying, yep, we work with this American investor, or this guy who's traveled the world and started companies in the US, in Brazil, in Turkey. And he's retained me. I don't always do what they tell me to do or what they advise me to do, but they keep me out of hot trouble. I push them just like I push myself and push my people. Um, there is an individual. She and I would get on a train at let's say 5 o'clock Friday evening and go to 5 major cities in Poland and get back to Poland the next evening. And uh, one night about midnight, we were getting ready to arrive in Warsaw, and she was dozing, and I was worried about her not being able to get home okay. And so I started asking her just questions, and I asked her one of the questions I asked her. I said, I want you to think about your life, and she's had a difficult life, okay. And I said, what one thing that you think of that you just want to laugh because of that one thing? Well, I thought that she was going to tell me about her new boyfriend, who was also loved by her mother. I mean, top guy, top notch. But she didn't. She says, the thing that I think of that makes me laugh is how she met me in a retail store one time. And that's for the first time I'd ever met her. And she said, since that meeting, I have done more in my career than I ever dreamed I would do in a lifetime, because she went from a trainee to one of the top three in my company in 3 years. Um, and, I'll just never, ever forget that.
You talk in terms of sports, business again, and player development, employee development, team member development. And just what a great example with that. What are some of the key factors, or what are some of the intangibles that you impressed upon her to have that kind of growth? And what are some of the strategies that you've employed to have other people grow that much in your company? That's a very good success story.
The It's not what I impress on them; it's really what they impress on me. Okay, because 80% of all of us is the same, you know. But there's 20%, the old 80-20 rule. There's 20% that's different, and it just so happens in other countries that 20% is more important than the 80% sometimes. Um, and in America, in our culture, a lot of people talk. A lot of people say a lot of things. Uh, and the best example I can give you, there's one state where it's called the Show Me State. You know what that state is?
Tell me.
Missouri. Missouri. Well, I found, especially Poland, Poland is a show me country. They're not interested in your BS. No matter what you tell them, they're skeptic about it. And I had to learn how to deal with that in Poland. Other things I learned in Brazil or in Turkey, but we'll focus on Poland because Poland, the Poles, are a group of people, a society, I think, like no other that I've ever met, because they're skeptical. They value their time more than money. and they want the truth, and you can slide a little bit in some of these other cultures, but not Poland. One of the first staff meetings that I had over there with three women, um, it was the first meeting that we had, and I had a 30-minute, and one of them tells me what they're doing, and then I say, okay, go tell Izza to come in. Izza will come in, and well, each of those women, I asked them a question about one of the other women. That group of three women come in and gave me a lesson that I've never forgotten. And their point was, if you've got a question about me or my work, ask me. Don't ask somebody else. And that's the kind of thing, that it makes me better. And so I concluded that it was okay for me to tell people what to do. Don't ever, ever try to tell them how to do it. So that become a two-way learning. So there would be times I would tell them vaguely what to do and not give them the detail that I wanted to give them. I would just wait and let them come back and show me how to do it. And I always learned something that I didn't know. So the more than any place I've ever been posed, you need to be candid with them. And one time I told one of them, in fact, this is a person during an interview, I told him, I said, I'm just appreciative of your time to come and see me. And she had said no. She had turned me down. Well, she come back in an hour and she said, I think I want to work with you. I've never had somebody to tell me they thank me for my time in coming to an interview and telling them I wasn't interested in working for them. So she went to work. And she ended up being the her start was e-commerce. I asked her, I said, what do you want to do with your life? She was maybe 21. And she said, I want to learn e-commerce. That was Poland, if you suggested e-commerce in Poland at that point, they'd think you was crazy. Okay. And she says, I want to learn e-commerce. And I says, really? I says, well, what's your passion? What's your hobby? And she says, I love photography. And I told her, I said, so be it. Well, she ended up in about 2 years. She was the e-commerce manager. She ended up being my new business kind of person. And we had a love-hate relationship. I loved her for her work, but I hated for her to criticize me. And that's the kind of relationship that you end up with that, in my opinion, is like being married three times, to three different women. So you kind of got to give and take to work your way through.
Right.
But pose, excuse me, when I was in Brazil, I went to this old bookstore and I found that book. And 3% of the people that worked with me were could speak English in Brazil. So this was my sanity. At night, I'd go home and read this. It was brand new. Okay.
I read it a lot.
Yeah.
A lot about that.
I read it three times because I didn't understand it. I couldn't follow it. But this is the reason I chose Brazil. I was bored at nights in Brazil. And so I started researching different countries. And Poland, no matter what you looked at, and I looked at 12 factors, Poland was always in the top three. This was in 1994. Okay. And I read this book and I thought, God almighty, the longest last names. I couldn't even pronounce the name. Uh, and this book was written. This is a fiction, okay? Um, but the book was written for travelers, and let's say there's Joe Blow. You read about Joe Blow in chapter 1, and all of a sudden, chapter 2, you're reading about somebody else. And then in chapter 5, they go back to Joe Blow with these long names. And I couldn't remember the name. So I went back a second and third time and wrote down every name that was in this book. And finally, I decided I understood. And, Poland, I think, has been wiped off of the map 4 times. The country didn't exist 4 different times. And today, you look what they are. So, um, it's a great country, great people, but you got to be honest with them.
Well, as it relates to your company here, Global Retail Alliance, tell us about your future vision for the company. You talked about turning things profitable. You talked about succession plans. What is your future vision for the company
Uh, we have I'm talking about global retailers. We have a franchising program, Decorador, uh, and we this is this shows the stores that could support a Decorador. We've got the 50 top cities in Poland, in Central and Eastern Europe, the countries that could support. In North Africa, we sold an Ethiopian franchise in Ethiopia. So in total, right here is 2,000 stores, $2 billion. And that's very, very conservative. Uh, very conservative. It could be 5,000 stores, the way our country has changed, or the world, not the country, the world, as a result of COVID. Um,
Well, that's a very, very aggressive and ambitious growth vision. Like I said, some of the things that you talked about, the structure of your company, the success of the company, the way you all train and function, it's just not too far fetched. As it relates to our relationship, we talk about accreditation and your standing here in the Hampton Roads region. How has the BBB accreditation benefited you, and how have you
I
appreciated that
love
over the years?
Elizabeth. Okay.
Big
Uh,
part of the BBB.
yeah, she's got to be. Uh, and she muscles me because I don't think I can afford $500 every year, you know. But once she got me, she's managed to keep me, and I feel good about it. And I'm actually, as a result of recent conversations with her, I'm going to start going and attending some of your affairs because I think I could benefit. Uh, and I think the other thing is I've got the decal on my door. And so when people walk in and talk to me about this, they know I've got some degree of legitimacy and fairness.
Trust
But
and ethics.
uh, um, so I would I look for that label, like when I'm doing work at home. Uh, I look for the BBB label.
Good, good. Well, Bill, we do appreciate this time. You've given us a snapshot and this intimate view of your company here and abroad, talking about your leadership team, talking about the challenges, talking about your coaching hat that you put on, and how you've grown things, and then where you ultimately want to go with this vision, just like a coach or a college program would or a sports program would. And again, we just appreciate your accreditation. We appreciate your alliance. We appreciate your support of the BBB. We wish you nothing but the most successful path forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right.